Hi everyone, and welcome to week 2 of the Healthy Habits course from Strong in Body, Strong in Mind. Thank you everyone who participated in week 1 and gave me feedback. Very much appreciate it. If you haven't watched the week 1 video, I recommend revisiting before moving on. This week we are going to talk about macronutrients and portions. So more into the food, kind of delving deeper beyond last week's assignment of getting more in touch with our hunger cues. We're going to look at kind of what our plates should look like when we eat. And again, this is kind of a very general approach, and one size doesn't fit all, but here's kind of a guideline for where you should start when you're trying to portion out your meals. So let's talk about the macronutrients. The 3 macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. We're going to start with carbs. Say it with me. Carbs are not evil. Carbs are not evil. They have a purpose. And it's a long-winded purpose, so I won't go into it, but I can send you literature if you don't agree with me. The problem that we have with our society is that we usually eat too many carbs, or we get them from poor sources. So rather than getting nutrient-rich carbohydrates that benefit our body in many ways, we kind of gravitate towards the ultra-delicious bread and pastas. So for portions of your carbohydrates, you should look at a cupped hand. That would be a portion. And we kind of use the hands as a way to figure a portion because they're attached to you. It's not a measuring cup. So cupped hand of carbs. So cupped hand of brown rice, cupped hand of whatever your choice may be, sweet potato. And for a man at each meal, usually about 2 cupped hands of carbs. For a woman, usually about 1. And why people tend to gravitate towards low-carb diets, there are a lot of specialized groups that benefit in different medical ways from having a low-carbohydrate diet. And they do result in quick weight loss because water magnetizes to carbohydrates. So once you cut the carbs, you lose a lot of water weight. You don't actually lose fat when you see someone snapping off 5 pounds as soon as they drop carbs. Very rare that it's actually fat that they're losing that quickly. So there's lots you could learn about carbs. If anyone has questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to talk about it. Next, we're going to move on to fats. I'm kind of going through quickly because I know I rambled a bit the last time. So your fat portion is the size of a thumb. Your thumb, specifically for you. Yay! If you're a man, about 2 thumbs worth of fats at each meal, and if you're a woman, 1. Your fats can consist of cheese, some dairy products, avocado, nuts. Those are all good sources of fat. And fats actually also had kind of a societal, a bad name after a report was released in the late 70s saying all fat is bad. Fat makes you fat, essentially. But there's a big difference between dietary fat and body fat. And so after this report was released, you can actually see on the charts they started taking fat out of products and replacing with sugar. And you see on the graph side by side, as this trend started to go upwards, so did the obesity rates. It's actually quite startling to see. The USDA actually recanted this statement, called it a failed experiment later on, but as you know, it's hard to unring a bell. So there's still a long way to go with kind of relearning what we had originally thought about fats. So fats from the proper sources can be very good for your body. Next is protein. And again, if you're an avid member of the gym community, you probably heard a lot about protein. A lot of high protein diets, as opposed to low carb or in conjunction with, are very popular because protein takes longer to break down, so therefore you're fuller longer, and not as likely to go eat the big bowl of pasta. And protein does have a lot of very important functions within the body. It is not the be-all, end-all. It's important that you have a balance with the other macronutrients and incorporate micronutrients. So for your proteins, they're about the size of your palm. That's a serving. And for a man, approximately, very general, remember, you want about 2 per meal, woman 1. These 3 macronutrients together kind of create the ideal diet. I don't want to use the word diet though, you know what I mean. But you also want to make sure that you're getting a lot of green vegetables, aside from those kind of wider areas along with your meals. So a serving of green vegetables or nutrient-rich vegetables will be about the size of your fist. And again, 2 for men, 1 for women. And rather than just taking that amount, because you're not always going to have, green vegetables at breakfast, you kind of want to look at the overall, the throughout the day to make sure you're hitting those numbers. So you could mix it up a little and, have 3 servings of green vegetables at dinner and cut back earlier in the day, or mix it in with your snacks. So all very general, just so you can build a foundation. These are just kind of the accepted nutrient recommendations. So what we're going to do for this week's homework is try and incorporate those different serving sizes into our meals. Try to incorporate, or just one meal. That's a good idea. Focus on one meal for this week where you're going to start to incorporate those different portion sizes. And you don't have to do it all at once. If you can start to maybe shift the carb protein balance a little, that would be beneficial. Or if you can start to add the vegetables in, that would be beneficial. But starting to try to target those kind of generalized numbers. And of course, there will be changes because you're all unique individuals that will have your own limiting factors and your own dietary requirements. But trying to gravitate towards those at one meal per week so that by the end of the week, you can have kind of the recommended plate. And I will actually include an infographic that kind of looks at what your plate should look like, for lack of a better term. So that's our homework this week. If you haven't finished last week's, the mindful eating, I highly recommend you go back and do that. Make sure you have that habit down pat before you move on to this. It will make things easier in the long run. And, try and figure that out consistently. And then move on to looking at your macronutrients and your portion sizes for this week. Of course, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to email me. If you want to yell at me because you disagree and you want to do your own thing, that's fine too. Let me know. I'd love hearing from you. I love talking with you. Had some great conversations in the last week about the different challenges that different people have faced. So don't hesitate to reach out, either on social media or through email and direct response to this message. Thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to hearing from you all, and I'll see you next week.